Tonight's tale is called Club of Silent Laughter, Footsteps That Never Fade. Listen carefully, because once you hear it, you'll never forget it. Chapter 1. Glass Gap's Whisper. I finally unpacked the last box in the living room coffee mugs, a bookshelf with a few books I'd already read, and a single lamp that sputters on when I hit the switch. The city outside is a constant low hum of traffic and distant sirens, which is comforting because it means someone is around. My apartment is a 2-bedroom unit on the 4th floor, and the windows are oddly narrow. I swear the glass has these little gaps, like the edges are set at an angle that isn't quite right. I didn't think much of it until I sat on the couch, earbuds in, scrolling through the feed of my friends. At 1:55 a.m. the whisper started. It was barely louder than the wind outside, a soft rhythmic sigh that seemed to come through the glass. At first I thought it was just condensation forming on the windows, but then it repeated every few seconds, almost like a heartbeat. I leaned in, and for a whole minute I could feel my own breathing sync with the sound. The noise wasn't a noise. It felt like the window itself was exhaling, and the way it was angled just amplified that sigh. My rational brain said, okay, probably a house settling, but something about it was intentional. I set my phone on the coffee table, opened a new voice note, and recorded the whisper. The sound on the recording is just the same soft hum, but it's clearer than the live version. I marked the time on my phone, 2:13 a.m. The recording was surprisingly crisp, like someone had mic'd a room and recorded a faint background track. Later, when I went to the hallway, the key counter was empty, except for a single antique key lying on the mat. It was small, brass, with an old lock style that I haven't seen in decades. The key had initials, ER, etched on the bow, but there's no way I could find a lock that matches it. I couldn't help but feel that the key had just appeared. Mrs. Patel, my old neighbor who was in the kitchen, knocked on my door and said, "Welcome to the building, dear. Need any help with the elevators?" She was polite, but when I mentioned the key, her eyes flickered for a second and she hurried away. I didn't bring it up again. Feeling like a situation was getting out of my control, I decided to post an anonymous note on Renault Sleep. I described the whispering glass and the key, added a photo of the recording, and asked if anyone else had seen this. A few hours later, I got a comment from a user with the handle Mystic Breeze. They said, "I've heard the same hum in my unit for months. The key you found is a prototype from the 1920s, and there are rumors that some of us share a hidden lock that only opens at midnight." The comment was short, almost dismissive, but the idea of a hidden lock hit me like a cold hand. I don't know if it's a prank, a building quirk, or something else. All I know is that the whisper is still there whenever I look at the glass, and the key feels heavier than it should. Tonight, I'll try to sleep with the lights on, just in case someone is watching through those gaps. Chapter 2. First Steps in Darkness. I was halfway through a late-night binge watching the 90s sitcoms on my phone, listening to the same whisper from the windows that kept me on edge, when I heard the hallway click again. Not the usual creak of the old building, but a deliberate, rhythmic thud that seemed to come from somewhere down the corridor. My heart spiked. I imagined a cat on the ledge, or maybe Mrs. or Stester. Patel dropping her groceries again. I pressed my ear to the door, and the sound was louder, like someone walking in a narrow hallway, each step a muted drum. I told myself it was probably just the building settling, but curiosity got the better of me. I slipped out of my apartment, leaving the door ajar, and walked down the dim hallway, the only light coming from the flickering hallway bulb that gave off a weak orange glow. The thud stopped abruptly when I turned the corner where the elevator was supposed to be. There was a small brass keyhole, almost invisible against the worn door frame. I remembered the antique key I'd found on the hall counter that night. Its E.R. initials engraved in a faint swirl. A sudden impulse, like a muscle memory, pulled me to insert the key. The lock clicked, and a panel that had been disguised by peeling paint swung inward, revealing a narrow, dark space beyond. Inside was a room no larger than a closet, but the air smelled of old wood smoke and something metallic. The only furnishings were a low, dented table, a single chair, and a stack of ledger books on a dusty shelf. A group of people sat around the table, their faces hidden in the shadows. The silence was almost as loud as any scream. I kept my voice low. "Excuse me?" My voice sounded hoarse. Mrs. Patel, who had been in my apartment a moment earlier, glanced at me with a half smile that didn't reach her eyes. She nodded toward the ledger on the table and whispered, "Check the dates." I opened the ledger, and it listed names and dates of meetings every month of the past year. On the last page, a hand, thin, almost translucent, had written a single word: lock. The man across from me was Mr. Lyle, the new tenant I'd seen in the lobby, looking like a ghost in his hoodie. He didn't speak. When I noticed a leather notebook lying open on the table, I couldn't resist. Its pages were filled with cramped handwriting. One entry read, "Key found. Hidden lock in the building opens at midnight. Tonight, we will test the system." The ink seemed to glow faintly under the weak light. A faint scent of wood smoke, combined with the metallic taste of the air, made my stomach twist. I had to leave. My palms were sweating as I slipped back through the hidden door, the panel shutting behind me with a soft thud that echoed the hallway footsteps I had just heard. I didn't stop running until I was in my apartment, slamming the door behind me. The whisper from the window had returned, but now it sounded more like a hiss, like someone was breathing right next to my ear. My phone buzzed. A text from Alex, the building manager. "Everything's fine, just a regular night." I tried to ignore it. My brain kept replaying the ledger, the handwritten note, and the small handprint on the wall next to the notebook. The handprint looked oddly familiar, as if it had been made from a thin finger I'd seen before. I sat back on the couch, heart pounding. The whisper seemed to come from every angle, and the building's old pipes creaked like they were talking to each other. I kept checking the phone, hoping the notification would show a new message, maybe another clue. It never did. The only thing I could do was wait for midnight and let the hidden lock decide if I was part of whatever they were planning. They weren't looking at me, they were laughing, but their laughter was so quiet that I couldn't hear it. Chapter 3. Friend Vanishes. I'm not usually one for posting late-night confessions, but there's something off in this building that I can't ignore. I got a text from Maya the night before. "Hey, did you hear about the club meeting tonight? Wanna come? I've been curious since the whisper from the window and the hidden door with that dented keyhole." I texted back, "Yeah, let's go after work." Her reply was a single emoji, and then the call dropped. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe she was busy. I figured out a plan for after the shift at the library and left my apartment with my hoodie on, phone at the ready. When I got to Maya's place, App 3B, same building but a block farther up the hall, the front door was unlocked. I was used to the doors being locked tight in this old building, so something felt off. I stepped in, expecting to find her lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone. The hallway outside was empty. No footsteps, no murmur of the building. The only sound was that faint hum from the glass that had been bothering me for days. I almost laughed at myself for being paranoid. I walked into her living room, It looked like she'd been there only a minute, but the couch was dusty and the lights were off. I could hear a whisper, almost like wind through the broken window, echoing the hum I'd heard all night. I followed it to the sofa, where a torn piece of paper lay in a loose spot beneath a cushion. It read, "Find the lock." The ink was smudged, like it had been written recently, but with shaking hands. On the table, near a mug, a small brass keyhole ring lay broken, shattered into a half circle. The lock on the hidden door I'd found earlier that night was dented. I knew I should be thinking of a prank, but the feeling of someone watching crept through my chest. I called Maya back. She answered on the second ring. "Hey." Her voice was tinny, like from a speaker. "What's up?" I tried to keep my tone casual. "We should meet up at the club." Her voice broke. "No!" She paused, and for a moment I heard nothing but my own breath. She didn't answer anymore. The next thing I knew, the front door of her apartment was shutting behind me. I backed out, heart racing, and heard a faint, dry crack as if the building was settling. I turned around and found Mrs. Patel standing at the doorway holding a bag of groceries, a faint smile on her face. "You're late," she said, as if nothing was wrong. "What's going on?" I kept my answer short. "You know this place?" The whisper in the hallway. I found something." She nodded slowly, as if she had seen it too. That building's owner was a recluse. He built secret rooms, and he liked to keep people in the dark. People say he left clues in the walls. Maybe the whispers are the building's way of telling you something. I left her apartment without saying goodbye. On my way back to my place, I felt the weight of Maya's phone in my pocket. I flipped it open. Her recent message, "Are you sure you want to be there?" was still there. The contact list, however, had vanished. Her name was gone, replaced with an unknown number. There was a faint scent of wood smoke lingering on the phone's back, like something had burned in the hidden rooms. When I got home, I tried to find the hidden door again. The keyhole was still dented, but the brass ring had an indentation that wasn't there before. My phone buzzed once. A notification from a Reddit post. "Anyone else hear whispers?" And why did my friend disappear? The message had no username. I stared at the screen, feeling a chill crawl up my spine. I know the club's secret is bigger than I thought. If the whispers are warning us, then the lock now broken is the point of entry. I have no idea who Maya is with, but I'm certain she's not alone in this. I can't ignore the building's past. I have to dig deeper, and whatever's behind that door is waiting for me. Chapter 4. Unheard Laughter Looms. I usually shut off my phone before bed, but after Maya's phone still buzzes in my pocket, I can't turn off the hum of the building. Around 12:15 Prof 5 I heard it first. A low rhythmic chuckle that seemed to be coming from the stairwell, far louder than the hum that'd been echoing off my window all night. It wasn't a person, not a distant laugh. It felt like the building itself was chuckling. I froze. The hallway was dark, only the faint glow of my phone screen and the moon through the cracked window. I followed the sound. The stairwell was the same as always, but halfway down the landing, a wooden plank had been nailed down. I pried it up with my fingernails. It creaked. The landing opened onto a narrow corridor that ran straight to a rusted metal door I hadn't noticed before. The door was stuck on the floor, but its hinges were rusted, the frame warped. I pressed on the door until it gave. The smell that hit me was old metal and something burning, like a long Yugo electrical fault. Inside, the space was a storage room full of dusty boxes and brittle paper. On a concrete floor lay a stack of torn notes, each with a date, all ending in tonight. I flipped through one, 12:14, tonight. Bring the key. The handwriting was shaky. In the corner, a small electrical box, unmarked, no ID, just a loop of loose copper wires and a flicker of neon green from a dying capacitor. I reached out, feeling the cold metal. My fingertips tinged a metallic taste that I could taste even after I washed my hands. The wires looked like they'd been pulled from a panel somewhere else in the building. It was like a looped circuit that kept running even when the building was shut down. At that exact moment, Mrs. Patel walked in, bag of groceries in hand. "You heard that?" she asked, eyes widening. "The stairwell used to be old experiment rooms. The original owner was weird about hidden speakers. He'd install them everywhere, you know." She pressed her palm to the railing. "Don't let the laughter lead you. It's not just the sound, it's reacting." She left a moment later, glancing back as if she could hear the chuckle following her. I turned around and saw Mr. Liao standing on the landing, his coat flapping. He gave me a half smile, eyes crinkling, and then stepped back into the hallway and disappeared beyond the stairwell doors. I didn't ask him where he was going. I just stayed there, listening. The laugh grew louder, like someone had turned up the volume on a hidden speaker system wired into the building. I called Alex at 2:05. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, you okay?" I whispered. I heard the laughter. He said the building's wiring has irregularities, that there's a loop circuit that's never been wired properly, but he had no idea what the devices meant. He said he'd try to find out, but didn't have the power to talk about it. Now, every night, the laugh is there, closer. It changes tempo when I move. It's like the building is breathing. The storage room feels like a hub for more rooms, hidden under floors, behind walls. I can't tell if it's a prank or a clue, but Maya's missing phone shows a recorded laugh in my dead battery phone. If the building's own infrastructure is a participant, and it's orchestrating something, I need to know what it wants before it takes another step. My fingers still taste a little metallic from the box, and the laughter is coming louder each night. I can't ignore it. I have no idea how far the club's secrets run, but I suspect the building holds more than I imagined. I'm starting to think there might be an unseen figure in those dark corners, watching me. The last thing I can see is the faint glow from the looped circuit, humming like the building is laughing at me. If this is just a prank, I want the joke to end now, but I can't sleep. The laughter is louder than ever, and I have no idea how to stop it. I usually shut off my phone before bed, but after Maya's phone still buzzes in my pocket, I can't turn off the hum of the building. Around 12:15 Prov 5 I heard it first, a low, rhythmic chuckle that seemed to be coming from the stairwell, far louder than the hum that'd been echoing off my window all night. It wasn't a person, not a distant laugh. It felt like the building itself was chuckling. I froze. The hallway was dark, only the faint glow of my phone screen and the moon through the cracked window. I followed the sound. The stairwell was the same as always, but halfway down the landing, a wooden plank had been nailed down. I pried it up with my fingernails. It creaked. The landing opened onto a narrow corridor that led to a rusted metal door. I pressed on the door until it gave. The smell that hit me was old metal and something burning, like a long-ago electrical fault. Inside the storage room, I found a stack of brittle paper notes and a small, unmarked electrical box. The box had loose copper wires looping back on themselves, like a self-sustaining circuit. I touched it, and a faint metallic taste stuck to my fingertips. The notes were all torn, each with a date that ended in tonight. The handwriting was shaky, almost frantic. One of the notes read, 12:14, tonight. Bring the key at 2:05 Prov 5. Mrs. Patel dropped by, bag of groceries in hand. "You heard that laugh?" she asked, eyes widening. The stairwell was used for old experiment rooms. The original owner liked to install hidden speakers in the walls. She shook her head. Don't let the laughter lead you. It's not just a sound, it's reacting. Just after, Mr. Liao appeared on the landing, half smiling place. He stared at me for a moment, then walked away without saying where he was going. The laughter seemed to follow me, louder when I approached the box. Alex called me after a short call. I've been looking at the wiring. There are irregularities, but I can't explain them. He sounded more uncertain than I'd liked. It's not a standard issue. Something else is wired into the building's infrastructure. I pressed my ear to the wall, hearing a low-frequency chuckle that seemed to change tempo as I moved. It was almost like a living thing. The building felt like a participant in the club's rituals, each hidden note and electrical loop a piece of a larger puzzle. My fingers still taste metallic from the box, and the notes all point to tonight's meeting. Maya's fate is somewhere in the network of hidden rooms, and the laughter is growing more intentional, as if the building is orchestrating the next phase. I have no idea what's coming, but I can't ignore the hum that's become louder each night. If the building is laughing, I'm not sure if it's laughing with us or at us. I keep a dead battery phone in my pocket to record the sound, hoping to catch something more. The laughter is louder now, closer. I'm starting to feel like I'm being pulled deeper into a room I don't see, and I can't find a way out. Chapter 5. Silence breaks with screams. I didn't think it was a good idea to check the building again after the night's weirdness, but my phone buzzed again. The notification was from an unknown number. The screen showed a black bar that read, "What we found." I tapped it, and a video played, the sound barely above a whisper. It was the hallway, just like every night. The low-frequency laugh that had been coming from the stairwell stopped half a second before the video cut to a sharp, high-pitched scream. I could hear it reverberate through the concrete walls. My heart started pounding against my ribs. I turned on the flashlight on my phone, flicked the switch, and saw the hallway in a harsh blue glow. The lights in the building were off. I didn't want to stay in the apartment, so I walked down the stairwell. My flashlight's beam flickered over a door in the storage room that I'd never seen unlocked before. The wood panel I'd pried up had been replaced by a rusted door that was ajar. I could smell the same old burnt metal and something newer, like fresh paint. When I pushed the door, it gave with a screech, and a faint squeak ran up the wall, as if someone had forced the hinges. Beyond the door was a concrete chamber, dimly lit by a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. The bulb's light painted the walls in a gray haze, making everything look older, deeper. I didn't expect to see a room in a storage closet. I was expecting more echoes. Instead, I saw people. A small group was standing in a circle, faces shadowed. They weren't the same people I'd seen in the earlier videos. These were different. Their voices were low, almost chanting, and I heard a faint mechanical hiss from the corners. One of them, a woman with a ponytail that seemed out of place for the building's age, was holding a handheld recorder that looked like an old cassette player. It whirred softly and captured every breath. The chanting wasn't a joke. It felt like a prayer, but a prayer to something. The leader, a man with a chipped grin, spoke in a voice that was too soft to hear through the walls. I heard a short gasp, then the room fell into a sudden silence, broken only by a maintenance worker's footsteps echoing through the corridor. The worker appeared on the landing, badge in hand. He watched me for a split second, gave a half smile that didn't reach his eyes, then walked back into the hall. His badge had an unfamiliar emblem, a simple black circle with a triangle. I couldn't remember seeing that emblem on any other badge in the building. I didn't follow him. I didn't think it was worth it. My chest felt tight, but I kept moving. At 12:05 Prof. 5, Mrs. Patel knocked on my apartment door, bag of groceries in one hand, the other hand holding a stack of blueprints that I had found tucked behind a loose panel in the storage room. She whispered that the original owner used to create sound rooms to induce fear, that they'd been exploited for some kind of ritual. She didn't even know the group's name. She just knew it was a club that had taken advantage of the building's weird acoustics. I answered a call from Alex the moment I left the hallway. It looks like the building has been broadcasting signals from that transmitter, but only to selected rooms. He sounded like he was still trying to convince himself that this was all a mistake. When I got back to my apartment, I opened a faded envelope that I'd found earlier with Maya written on it. Inside was a single piece of paper with a small doodle of a lock. There were also some photos of the concrete chamber, each one showing a crack on the wall where someone had forced entry. The transmitter I'd seen on the recorder was just an unmarked device, no label, no power supply. It had a little antenna sticking out, almost like a deadbeat transmitter waiting to go live. I left my apartment and turned the lights on again, hoping that the building would revert to its normal state, but the scream was still a distant echo, and I could hear faint cries coming from the hallway. The people inside the chamber were sobbing. I could almost taste their wet mouths on the air. I don't know what to do next. The maintenance worker was still in the hall, his badge glowing faintly in the dark. I have a map of hidden rooms marked in red, and I can see how many more rooms could hide people. Maya's name is on a paper, and I've heard this screaming and chanting again and again like a warning. I'm not sure if I'm scared or if the building is just trying to pull me into its next act. If you're thinking of staying in the building tonight, maybe you'll hear a laugh, a scream, or a quiet whisper in your ear. I can't keep my phone on for longer than a few seconds before the screen goes black. The silence feels like a promise that something else is listening, and I don't know if it's waiting for me. When he said the word Maya, his lips moved, but I couldn't see the name on his lips. Hey, I just checked the wiring again. He said he found a secondary audio feed that was never meant to be audible. Chapter 6. The Silent Closer Revealed. I didn't want to touch my phone after the last video, but Alex's voice on the other end was the only thing keeping me awake. 3 a.m., we've got a problem. He sounded frantic. The building's automatic door-closing system is linked to the audio feed. Every time the club starts the chant, the doors in those rooms lock automatically. I didn't know if he was trying to sound reassuring or just describing something I was terrified to understand. I told him to get a flashlight, and he hung up, leaving me with the echo of his voice and the cold drip of my own sweat. I grabbed the flashlight and crawled back to the storage room, the place that had felt like a secret lab after Maya vanished. I had spent the last 2 nights there, staring at the rusted metal door that had just been pulled open. Now, the panel that I pried up last night was open, revealing a concrete box the size of a small locker. A faint line on its surface read, "Closer." It had a keyhole and a small latch that clinked when I pressed it. The metal smell was strong, like something that had never been cleaned. At 3:02 a.m., I was almost finished examining the box when the door behind me slammed shut with a muffled thud. I froze. The light from the bulb in the storage closet bounced off the concrete, painting the walls a sickly gray. No sound, no breath, just the sudden silence that felt like someone had turned the lights off in a room that was supposed to be bright. My phone buzzed again. A delivery guy had dropped a package on my doorstep. An odd thing, but it was normal enough, the building's courier system. Inside the package was a cracked key, the kind of small metal thing that was hidden in a box. But I didn't see any other package. I was too nervous to put it on the keyhole. Mrs. Patel knocked on the door, groceries in one hand and a stack of blueprints in the other. "You'll need this," she whispered, sliding a thick sheet across my small table. She mentioned the silent closer, the person who seals the chamber when the chant starts. Her eyes were too bright for the dim room, and her voice sounded as though she was speaking to herself. "Is that what you mean by the doors locking?" I whispered, not sure if I was talking to the maintenance worker or to Alex. A maintenance worker, the kind of guy who had just finished fixing the lights on the other side of the hall, stood by the concrete box. He was wearing a badge that glowed faintly in the dark, a simple black circle with a triangle. He stared at me as I tried the key. I held the cracked key in my palm, feeling the small bumps of metal against my fingers. He gave a half smile, a quick motion that could have been a joke but felt too deliberate, then slipped into the hallway and disappeared behind the stairwell. The chanting resumed, voices low but steady. The latch clinked again, as if expecting the key. A figure moved in. The silent closer entered, no words, no sound, just a quiet presence. He reached for the latch, the key in his palm, and slid it into the keyhole. The latch clicked once, twice. The door in that concrete chamber slid shut with a final, almost mechanical sigh. The room fell into an absolute silence that felt oppressive, like someone had turned the lights off in a crowded theater. I stayed in the storage room, flashlight still on, trying to hear something. The only sound was my own breathing. Alex's voice returned on the line, now sounding less urgent. "We don't know why the doors lock. Maybe whoever built the system is using it to keep the rooms quiet for the ritual." I stared at the concrete box, the keyhole, the badge glowing faintly in the corner. I realized that the maintenance worker who had watched me might be the silent closer. I didn't know if the silence was a trick of the building or an actual physical act, but it was deliberate now. The blueprint's red marks made me think of other rooms, other people, Maya's name on a faded envelope, a lock doodle I'd found somewhere. I've been chasing my own reflection in this building, and the closer might be the one keeping me from finding out what's really happening. If you're staying in the building after midnight, you might hear the laughter, the chant, or just the sudden closing of a door that you can't open. I have my phone, the flashlight, and the key, yet the keyhole in that concrete box feels like it's waiting for someone to turn it. The silence feels like a promise. I don't know if it's telling me I'm next, or if it's telling me that whoever is controlling the silence is someone I trust. The only thing I know for sure is that I don't feel safe in the hallway, and I'm scared that the next time the club starts, the doors will close, and I'll be trapped in the same absolute silence that's been haunting me since Maya disappeared. The lines on the blueprint were marked in red, a map of a wiring system that looked like the original owner had planned a sound closing device.